many tonnes have you got in?
We've got 103 tonnes in so far.
The subsidies that I get today are worth an awful lot of money to me. Last year, for example, I got a cheque, a little brown envelope, and it came around Christmas time, which was very fitting, for about £192,000. The reason why farmers don't, in general, put up signs like this is because they have an absolutely passionate, irrational, prodigiously strong feeling of private property. It's mine, keep out. The people who move into the countryside these days do so because they think they like the countryside, but what they actually want is a sort of Walt Disney countryside. The attitude of not just the average farmer, but also the NFU as well, has been go to blazes. I farm 2,000 acres of South Cambridgeshire on the rolling chalk lands like this field. Now, when I was a little boy, we still had fields this size, nearly 80 acres, but the farm itself was very, very different indeed. We had 3 different dairy herds, all Jersey cows, an Aberdeen Angus beef herd, we had pigs, sheep, turkeys, chickens, the lot. Now we just have crops. The problem with the Common Agricultural Policy, which is something that puts everybody to sleep the moment you mention the word, is that A, it costs much too much, and B, it is completely indiscriminate. It just chucks money out all over the place. If you say farmers like me here in East Anglia shouldn't have subsidies, and I would probably agree with that, by the way, then the price is as follows. This farm will look like Saskatchewan if I have to compete with a man who farms 2,000 acres of wheat on the Canadian prairies and doesn't have a hedge for 1,000 miles, and whose average size fields are 300-400 acres. Then don't be surprised if my farm looks the same way. And most people would say that was a pity, and I would say it was a pity too. By all means subsidise me, but subsidise me to do things that the general public like plant hedges, like leave bits of the field unsprayed, like leave wetlands undrained. Those are the sort of subsidies that most of the public would approve of, and I would be happy to accept the money as well. I managed to sell this barn the other day to a couple who came from the high-tech industry somewhere, and they have bought this barn, which is a complete wreck, for £200,000. They've got planning permission to change it into a house, but this again is what's happening to the countryside. What was once 35 years ago a thriving, flourishing livestock operation is now a shell. But to pay 200,000 quid for a derelict barn seems to me to be absolutely nutty. As the seller, I'm thrilled to bits, of course. And this was a dairy. It was actually one of the more famous dairies in England, if only because the cows that occupied this dairy were probably the best Jersey herd in the country, the best pedigree Jersey herd, because in those days, I'm talking about the 1940s and 1950s, we used to show them. And all these beams here, I remember as a kid, used to have the championship certificates nailed up on them. As you come in here, you'd see a whole forest of red and blue. I single-handedly sold the cows. It created a bit of a disagreement, to put it politely, between my father and me. But again, people say, oh, isn't it a pity there aren't any cows now? And the answer is, well, if what you think of as cows as being just decoration for the countryside, yes, it probably is. But right now you have the west of England specialising in livestock, beef and dairy and sheep, and the east of England specialising in arable farming, wheat, barley, sugar beet, peas, beans and oilseed rape. And that's the way it's going, and that's inevitable. I'm waiting to see what the moisture is. And I'm about to find out. 15%, absolutely perfect. 15% is the exactly correct moisture. Below that, you're losing money. Above that, you have to spend money drying it. So I'll now tell Dick on the combine. 828275. 275. You're a very clever man. You managed to do it at 15.0%. Drinks all round. Something like that. Very good.
Jolly good.
What worries me most about the countryside today is that it is getting increasingly polarised. On the one hand, you've got a small and shrinking band of slightly shrill, slightly hysterical farmers who are frightened by and distrusting of the general public. And on the other hand, you've got all these hordes of people moving into the villages who don't like farmers either. Once you've moved into a village, you insist that everything stays exactly as you found it, which means that you want to put the whole village into a sort of time capsule, into an amber like a fly. And it means that you then run the parish council and you object to all the things that you thought you liked. You object to animals and livestock because they tend to make messes on the road. You object to tractors and you object to harvest time because that makes dust and noise. In fact, just down the road there's a man who built himself a new house. He rang me up one Sunday morning and said, could I please cut the meadow? And the reason he asked me to cut the meadow was because he said, the thistledown is blocking my swimming pool filter. That's the new villager. 767675.
Come in, 75.
What was the moisture of the last load?
17.4.
I'm unpopular for drawing attention to the fact that I get a very large cheque and other farmers do too. You have to admit that there are some things that, even though they enrich me and make my wallet fatter than it would otherwise be, aren't necessarily terribly sensible. And it's that thought that most farmers in this country consider to be totally treasonous. They say I'm betraying the farming industry and doing it a disservice. Well, good luck to them.